In life, we encounter people every day, all of whom have stories to share. We rarely take the time to ask people their personal stories, many of which will touch, move, and inspire us in some way. Matt has a passion for making authentic connections and learning about people from all walks of life. He has lived a life of giving back to the community and making a difference in people's lives. Are you ready to meet fascinating people and hear some inspiring stories? The Matt Hilton Show will introduce you to a world of possibilities you never knew existed. Sit back, be present, and enjoy. Here's your host, Matt Hilton.
Hey everyone, Matt Hilton here, the host of the Matt Hilton Show. Thanks for tuning in today. You don't want to miss my next guest. Have you ever heard of net weaving? Have you heard of Success North Dallas? My guest today is going to blow your socks off, and there isn't a person that I don't think that Bill doesn't know. So stay tuned, you don't want to miss this episode. And stay tuned for a word from our sponsor, and like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
With almost 20 years of real estate experience in the North Texas area, the professional realtors at Hilton Realty Advisors have helped over 500 clients with their housing needs. Hilton Realty Advisors covers all areas of real estate: buying, selling, building, investing, and renting. We deliver the keys to homeownership to all through integrity, love, and joy. Call us today for all of your real estate needs.
Hey everyone, Matt Hilton here, the host of the Matt Hilton Show. Thanks for tuning in today. Today's guest is an acquaintance of mine, and I hope to become a friend in the future. And I am excited for you to hear his story. I'm excited to hear his story. In the few minutes before the show, I was in awe at just some of the stories that he was telling me. And Bill Wallace is here. He is the Chairman Emeritus and founder of Success North Dallas. Bill, thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor. I've watched your show. You've had some great guests, so I hope I do you justice today.
Well, you will. You will. I'm sure you will. You are a connector of people. So I've got to ask, did you know that you would end up in being a connector of people? Like, did you put puzzles together as a kid? Like, did you connect pieces? Like, how did you get into being a connector of people?
Well, when I was 12 years old, I had 5 paper routes. I hired other people to throw them for me, and I'll never forget the Saturday or Sunday when it rained. I had to pay my father to drive me around when they didn't show up. So when I was 13, I'd been working also in my uncle's men's clothing store, Irby May's Men's Stores. And I'd been dusting. Every suit had to come down individually, and you dusted the shoulders with a whisk broom. And he made you do every single suit. And so they were having a big sale, and they put me out on the sales floor. And I just turned 13. And I wrote a bigger book than salespeople that had been there for many, many years. And I'll never forget, my uncle was talking to me about it, and he said, "You mastered an art. You would take them and put them into their size. You recognize their size, put them into their size, and cause them to have a conversation with a suit." And he said, that's the art. And so I ended up dealing with people much, much, much older than I for summers, evenings, and we always stayed late on Thursday evening. And I'll never forget, we had a little small TV. And Thursday evening at 7 o'clock, we were hoping there'd be no clients in the store because that's when Peyton Place came on. Okay. And so we'd be gathered around this little TV, hoping nobody would come in. Right. The store was right next door to the Inwood Village Theater. So that kind of started it. My father was a banker. He caused me to save money. I'll never forget, there was a place called Melody Shop in Inwood Village. Mm-hmm. And I actually went to Inwood National Bank, and I was 15 years old, and I got a loan for $500 to buy a Martin D28S guitar. As a kid. And so I'd saved some money, and when I turned 19, the agony of it was, did I buy a house or just pay rent? And the rent was $50 a month less than the house payment. And I'd saved $4,000, and you couldn't get a loan back then, but you could assume a loan I assumed a loan on a 4-bedroom Fox and Jacobs flare home, paid the guy $4,400 for his equity, and my house payment was $154.
What?
$154 a month.
Right.
And I leased out 2 of the rooms to other college students, so I had positive cash flow. I thought, this is kind of an interesting thing. And I went into, I did my grad work in computing sciences, and I got fired from my first job because they wanted to move me out of Dallas. And I'll never forget, I told this company, I said, look, if I'd wanted to leave Dallas, I would have gone to work for a good company, EDS, and moved to Boston. But I came to work for you because I wanted to stay, because this is home.
Yeah.
And it still is, 73 years later almost. But and I told the gal, I said, look, I didn't want to program the damn things anyway. I wanted to sell them.
Mm.
So I went to work wholesaling bulk rubber products internationally, and didn't like that. So I ended up going to work for an immigrant Jew who learned English in the MBA program at UCLA Berkeley. And I joined the lumber industry, and I stayed in that until '83, when I went in the insurance business. Retired from that 9 years ago, and then am in the process now of retiring from Success North Dallas, and my 3rd retirement. So I don't know what's next, but God told me last year when I was dying in the hospital, be quiet, my son, you're not done yet. All 6 doctors, I was in the hospital I was gone from home 7 weeks.
Wait, so this was just a year ago?
A year ago. I got out of the hospital June 5th a year ago. I coded twice, 12 transfusions, 7 full anesthetic procedures, and all 6 doctors never expected me to leave the hospital alive. But in the course of this, when I couldn't even sit up or roll over, this voice came to me and just said, "Be quiet, my son. You're not done yet." And so I don't know what the next chapter is going to hold. But boy, I tell you, I've got the greatest job in the world, Matt.
Yeah.
I get to put 2 people together, take a step back, and watch the magic happen. Sometimes I get paid for it, sometimes I don't. It's not about the money. The money comes. When you lead with love, love comes in return.
Yes, sir.
And that's really, what it's been. Success North Dallas is, I thought it'd last 3 to 5 years, that 5th year.
So how did Success North Dallas start?
Wow.
What is the story behind that?
Well, I had, in 1979, I got a letter that said, would you help us build a house? And I was a smart aleck, 29-year-old. So I took a Sharpie and I wrote on the letter, if you're crazy enough to ask, I guess I'm crazy enough to say yes. Would you like to get together and tell me about it? Bill. Put my phone number on there. I sent it back to Dr. Dale Fuller, who was head of oncology for Children's Medical Center, now Children's Health. And lo and behold, that was the Ronald McDonald House of Dallas. And that letter changed my life. I'll never forget, I was down there, I was Vice President of Community Interaction. I chaired the Speakers Bureau and whatever. But I was down there, we opened it debt-free Valentine's Day, 1981. 6 months after that, I was playing with some kids down there and I was walking back to the car. And I had tears rolling down my cheeks. And I really didn't know what was going on. I got in the car and I started crying. And I realized that was singularly the most self-serving thing I'd ever done in my life. That was the gas in my tank. And that letter truly changed my life. 15 years later, Dr. Mara Schreier Fleming was in the audience when I was giving the talk. Vision, the genesis of making an organization work. And she asked a question at the end. She said, Bill, if you could change one thing in your life, what would it be? And I
That was the question I wanted to ask you.
and I found myself going up into that seventh level of consciousness, where I'm sitting here on the stage with you, but I'm looking at myself from up in that seventh level. And I really didn't know what I was saying, but what I said was, if I could have gotten that letter one day, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, 1 lifetime earlier, because that letter did in fact change my life. The letter led me to meeting Herb Kelleher, which is in itself a hysterical story. I had a mentor, Roger Meyer, largest Cadillac dealer in the Southwest at that time. And he was always telling me I needed another mentor. Well, little did I know who it would end up being, but I came up with this wacky idea that perhaps Mr. Kelleher would be willing to do a PSA, a public service announcement, for the Ronald McDonald House of Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
And so in flight, one of their groups was cooking down there every couple of weeks. I remember the lady's name, Joanne Xavier. And I asked her, I said, do you think Mr. Kelleher would be willing to do this? She said, well, if you call him Mr., no, he won't do it. And don't use sir either.
Mm-hmm.
And I started laughing. She said, let me give you his number. Okay. So I call over there and I get Vicki Schuler, who's been Herb and Colleen's admin from almost day one. And so I tell Vicki, this idea about, and she said, well, let me ask Mr. Kelleher and we'll get back with you. And I said, you mean Herb? She said, yeah, let me ask Herb. We started laughing. And so I hear this interruption, this voice, and she said, could you hang on just a minute? Herb will speak to you right now. And so I'm getting through to the CEO of Southwest Airlines, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh. And we get on the phone, and I said, look, my idea, and he said, yeah, we could do that. He said, Vicki, let's go look at my schedule. Let's just get it on the schedule now. So it was 10 o'clock for a Thursday morning, and it was going to be for an hour. And I said, we'll have a film crew there. He said, nah, I'll bring my own film crew. Don't worry about it. About an hour before, 9 o'clock, a truck shows up. Lights, camera, action. All like this studio here. I mean, what Jeff Crilly's done here is just absolutely magical.
It very much is.
Oh, I love that man. But anyway, so he shows up. So we do the PSA. The next thing I know, it's 1 o'clock. Then it's 2 o'clock. Then it's 3 o'clock. He's still there. He's playing with the kids. Then it's 4. We go to Joe Miller's Bar and Grill. And I took Herb home that night. Oh, wow. And that's how I met Herb. And he calls me the next day. He says, I think I owe you lunch or dinner. And I said, I think you do too.
Nope.
So we became friends. And I walked into his office one day. And I said, Roger Meyer, he keeps telling me I need another second mentor. He said, you got any ideas? I said, yeah, you. He gets this look on his face like a blank, blank, blank look. And I'll never forget, he said, what the hell? And so we became friends. I was with the family at the funeral. He became like a second father, but in March of 88, excuse me, March of 1988, he looks at me. I'm sitting in his office with Roger, and I'm kind of a ping pong ball between the two of them, Cadillac guy and an airline guy. Jesus, how crazy was I? But, and I quote, Wallace, there's 4,553 of you insurance agents out there. When you figure out why I should do business with you, come back. Now get out and figure it out. That was the beginning of Success North Dallas. For the next 5 months, I went to 48 different networking groups in North Texas. And I looked for what people did not like, not what they liked. And they didn't like card pushers. They didn't like selling from the lectern. They didn't like selling in the room.
Right.
They didn't like card pushers with pitch bookers walking around, people dealing cards. And paying of speakers, because the speaker kind of thought they owned the place back then. It's a little different now, but we haven't paid a speaker in 34 and a half years. And 3 of our speakers this year, they don't open their mouths for less than $25,000. They come because of the people in the room.
Yeah.
But we've never paid a speaker. And charging of guests, we had to change that one because people were becoming abusive. And so the final one was women. No one wanted women in networking in 1988.
Really?
No one. And so I go and I find this cute word. It's a Buddhist word, sadhana, a taboo against what makes one feel uncomfortable. And I'm being cute now, of course. I've got to impress her. I said, I'm going to put a sadhana against all of these things. So I go through the list, card pushers, pitch bookers. I get down to women. Herb says, yeah. Roger says, yeah. And I say, except women. Herb looks at me. I said, you're going to have a problem. I said, no, sir. Now remember, sir and mister. Nah, not the thing to say. I said, no, sir. I'm going to have a big problem. You said create transformational change through disruption. We're going to be 30% women from day one, and they are going to be my disruptors that allow me to create transformational change at networking. And I didn't really realize it then, but the Wall Street Journal said it later throughout the U.S. He stood up, and if you know the Southwest Airlines history, hot pants, free booze, free peanuts. He stood up and he put his hand on his hip and he said, well, blank, Wallace. I gave him hot pants and booze, you give him women in networking. Well, Matt, I was told there was an anatomical difference. Fellowship was of the masculine gender. I was an idiot. I was crazy. I was wasting my time. I was a fool. Well, lo and behold, women were my disruptors. And we've only done one lunch in the history of Success North Dallas. It was our 25th anniversary lunch. And it was that lunch I truly understood what Herb really said. But we had Ross Pro Senior Welcome, Boone Pickens hosted. We had the CEOs of Fluor, USAA, BNSF, and 7-Eleven, all on the same dais, and we honored Nancy Lieberman. In fact, I just saw her at lunch today. Wow. And when I turned and looked out at the room, it was one of my proudest moments. Ambridge Hotels had paid for the whole luncheon, 440 people. As I look out, the room was 50% women. I then understood what Herb said, and it was one of my proudest moments. Now, I was in the insurance business, and I ended up insuring some of the most powerful women because they didn't have another place to network, and they became friends. They had my back not like a lot of men do. But they were my disruptors. And these women, and these many women over the last 34 and a half years, are why Success North Dallas is still here today. And I thought at the beginning it'd last 3 to 5 years. I'd pay my dues. I'd, quote, separate myself from the herd. Pretty good thing to do. And I'm in my 5th year, and I'm thinking, I'm going to shut this thing down and move on. And this voice comes to me. Be quiet, my son. Go back to work. You're not done yet. And the big guy upstairs got his hand all over it. And here, 34 years later, we're still here. And I came up at that point in time with some ideas for the future. But always our qualifications for membership have been be a success in your own eyes. No one has the right to define what success is, but Matt.
That's right.
Honor your commitments. Let's go back to the handshake and be a giver. It's all about our fellow men and women. We didn't even have any corporate members until we turned 25 years old. None. And that in itself is another story. But we're sitting here looking at this, and so I'm saying, well, what am I going to do now? So one of my sage goals was to have a woman follow me as CEO of Success North Dallas. And I tried twice. And I'd been working with this woman for a year and a half, 2 years. Jan Claudner, who's my number two, and we both kind of knew she was the one. And so we accelerated the succession plan. But we effected a succession plan last October, and it's in its first year, and its succession plans 95% of them don't work. This one has worked beautifully. But I have a woman now as CEO, one of my sage goals, Casey Haston, who I think has now recorded 210 or 12 podcasts here in this studio.
Right.
And that was a sage goal. That came out of that 5th year about, what am I going to do with it? Why am I going to continue it on?
Yeah.
But Matt, our members have started 108 companies, 1,250 plus jobs, 8 Ernst & Young Entrepreneurs of the Year, 85 have mentored and formalized mentoring programs. We have 78 published authors, not books, published authors in the group. I think there's 2 television series that have come out of it, 3 nonprofits, and I don't know what else. But it's a room that self-selects people out. I will make a statement from the lectern. We are not a faith-based organization by the name above the door, but by the actions of all in the room. And we close every meeting with, may you do what you love to do with people you love to do it with on purpose. God bless and Godspeed. Well, I've been taken to task for saying God bless and Godspeed, but my response is, I'm not saying who your God is. I'm not defining God. I know who mine is, and I'll be glad to talk to you about him. But that's for you to own and you to interpret as you see fit. And we've never varied and departed from our core values, those 3 things, from day one. And the final thing is, from day one, that I've worked harder at than anything else, is keeping Success North Dallas a safe space. That has been the hardest thing to do. And yes, people have been asked to leave. And people have been removed from the list. You know, Scott Murray has a term, go-giver, not go-takers. Well, when you embrace other people, when I stopped the insurance business 9 years ago, 90% of my business was coming out of Success North Dallas. Lo and behold, I would take people there to meet other people. They started bringing people there to meet me. Love on others, and they love on you back.
That's right.
And so that's the genesis of Success North Dallas, and you know, the future is bright.
Yeah.
The next 35 years look pretty darn good right now.
For sure. So that's a lot of information, and I wish I was here taking notes. So here are some questions that I have.
It's on tape.
It is on tape.
You can watch it.
But I can't right now. No, one of the questions that came to mind as you were telling that fantastic story is the letter that you received. You said you were 29 years old.
Right.
And I don't take offense to this question, but what made you so special to receive that letter?
I was in the lumber business at that point in time, and I'd been president of the Fraternal Order of Lumbermen, the Hoo-Hoo. And I'd been president of the local chapter, vice president, something. And so that my name came up. They sent a letter. You know, somebody in the lumber business, somebody that might. And I tell you what, Matt, we opened that house debt-free. And for every dollar we received, 10% of every dollar was tied to ourselves. We started an endowment fund with the first dollar. So we were able to double the size of the house twice, debt-free. Build a new house, and I think it's now 81 bedrooms, debt-free. Because a guy named Rod Sager, back at the very beginning, who was in the insurance business and did a lot of high-end financial planning with very wealthy people, argued in a board meeting, a committee meeting, that we needed to do that. And we did it. It was the smartest thing we ever did. But I didn't get the letter because I was smart. I got the letter because I had splinters in my hands from the lumber business.
Yeah, and they needed a house built. Yeah.
You know, and I was a big wholesaler.
Okay.
We wholesale lumber. And what we did is we brought the Dallas-Fort Worth lumber yards together, and we asked that they give 2% of their shrinkage.
Okay.
So we had lumber trucks running around, and then the GC and the architect, they started calling their big clients like York or whatever, said, we need 6 refrigerators, 4 freezers.
Mm-hmm.
We need you to do this for this. And so the spirit of giving, you know, the talk that I would give is, oh gosh, this is a memory. Ladies and gentlemen, my purpose here is to redefine the word love. Love are the people sitting in this room. You are the love. The love that built the house, that wipes the tears, that feeds the kids, the house that love built. That's the Ronald McDonald House. It is not owned by McDonald's Corporation. They gave us a seed grant of $25,000. It is owned by the people of this community. So my purpose again is to redefine the word love. You are that love which built the Ronald McDonald House of Dallas.
Right.
And that led on to be on the national board and the grant committee, and then involved with Hoblitz, and then Brian's house in the middle of the AIDS, home for HIV and AIDS affected kids. We started 20 guys started a golf tournament for them in their second year when they were getting ready to go out of business. We didn't know that, but that golf tournament, Addison Rotary kept them open. And in 5 years, we had that golf tournament netting 200,000 plus. And the slogan was, it's not your money, it's your mouths. Because your mouths are what create and ensure the income stream that paves the way for the future.
Mm-hmm.
And because there were some people very much against having anything to do with those kids. And I remember the first time I went down to Brian's house, because we were picking something, and this was way out in left field, way out. I got in the car at Frankfurt and the North Dallas Tollway, and I was white, heterosexual, male, very ignorant, and I didn't know if I was going to come back HIV positive or with full-blown AIDS.
And what year was this?
This was in, probably 84-ish, somewhere right in there, 85, 86.
Right in the height of...
Yeah, right in the middle of it. This was just before Success North Dallas started. And when I got down to Brian's house, and one of those kids crawled up in my lap, I realized it wasn't those kids. Mm-hmm. Those were our kids. And that again was another inflection point, just like the meeting of Herb Kelleher, selling clothes for my uncle, the house, Brian's house. Mm-hmm. That was another one of the numerous inflection points in my life that along the way prepared me for my ultimate life purpose, Success North Dallas.
Yeah. All right, everyone, that's a wrap. Stay tuned for next week as we hear the second part of Bill Wallace's story. Take care.
If you'd like to contact Matt or know a fascinating person with an inspiring story that would make a great guest, reach out to the show at themattHiltonshow@gmail.com.